next, we're counting down 5 massive hits from the rock era that were once everywhere, but have since become socially unacceptable. These songs topped the charts, they ruled the airwaves, and they seemed untouchable until shifting times and cultural scrutiny pushed them into taboo territory. Some artists refused to play them at all, others have tried to rewrite history, and a few have vanished from pop culture altogether. Which songs made the list? Well, there are 2 number 1 hits on this countdown that 2 legendary artists have refused to play since. In fact, one of the biggest hits this artist ever had, she left off of her greatest hits album. Another is a classic of the rock canon that the band refused to talk about, essentially erasing it from existence. And then there's another one that pissed off feminists when it hit number 1 in the 80s, even though it was sung by a female. Very interesting stories here, including an artist interview. What are these songs? We'll find out next on Part 3, Volume 3 of our Taboo Songs of the Rock Era Countdown from Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you miss the days at MTV when they actually used to play music, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the white button and click the bell. I know you'll find something to dig on this channel. Also, make sure to go to professorofrock.com. We have a live stream coming up with a special guest about 1985. You're going to love it. Today, we're releasing Volume 3 of our Taboo Songs Countdown. Taboo Songs Volume 1 and 2 have been very popular, so I wanted to do a Volume 3. A lot of artists have their Greatest Hits album, Greatest Hits Volume 2. Good enough they might have a Greatest Hits Volume 3. Well, today, we got a good one for you. Volume 3 of our Taboo Songs Countdown. 5 massive hits that were everywhere back in the day, but have since become bristling controversial taboo. So let's get right into it. Kicking things off at number 5 is a song that's certainly taboo now, but maybe truly misunderstood. We have the singer behind it here to help us understand. Young Girl by Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. Get out of my mind. Young Girl may be as innocent as the title suggests, but the subject matter is kind of creepy. Young Girl is told from the perspective of a man who panics upon realizing that the girl he's involved with is actually under the legal age of consent, despite initially believing otherwise. Now, I had the unique opportunity to speak with Jerry Fuller, the prolific lyricist who composed the unsettling track, and then Gary Puckett, who sang the signature lead vocal on Young Girl. And here's what they said. What I love about that song is how it begins slow, and then you have that drum beat, and it builds from there to that great chorus. Get out of my mind.
Young girl, kind of pretty. Get out of my mind. And then it started. I liked getting a shock, at the beginning. The disc jockey's really got to be watching where he put that needle down in. Young girl. 1968 was the year that we beat the Beatles. We outsold the Beatles that year.
Well, in Young Girl, it's not a song about a guy going after a young girl. It's a guy who misunderstands her age until later and then says, okay, you're too young, get away from me, kind of thing. You let me to believe you're old enough.
Yeah, it's exactly true. And that's what I have to remind people of sometimes. But sometimes I just say, well, you didn't pay attention, so.
Get out of here. Yeah, go back and listen to the lyrics. It's a song, too, though, that, and these are happy accidents I know that happen, that you sing it then, it's kind of like that go-to song, the way they've used it in pop culture because of what it's saying, like Wonder Years. And some of these are like, we need a certain song for this element. Oh, Young Girl, there you go. It's kind of one of those songs that fits that very well. It's just using Licorice Pizza as well.
Yeah, and what was it? Glee had put it together with Don't Stand So Close to Me. Don't stand so close to me, young girl. They were talking about how they are so similar in their intent and purpose. It's gratifying to be suddenly put into that hip place by people who really understand what it's all about.
Young Girl by Gary Puckett and the Union Gap was a runaway pop smash in 1968. Went to number 1 in the UK, New Zealand, Ireland, and Canada. It was the number 2 single in South Africa, Australia, and here on the Billboard Hot 100. And man, they've used this in pop culture a ton. Coming up next on our Taboo Part 3 countdown, the song, the one of rock's greatest icons, hasn't played live since 1990. Number 2, I got Island Girl by Elton John. The 70s belonged to Elton John. Elton's music and Bernie Taupin's lyrics, they could do no wrong. But one of their number 1 collaborations hasn't really stood the test of time. That's 1975's Island Girl from Elton's Rock of the Westies LP. I mean, just an example of how big Elton John was in 1975. The song that Island Girl knocked out to grab the number 1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 was Bad Blood. Of course, the song that Elton sang support vocals for Neil Sedaka, who he helped make a huge comeback. Are you ready now? Bad blood. So with a melody that carries a Caribbean vibe, the lyrics of Island Girl can easily slip under the radar if you don't really listen. But apparently it's about a Jamaican lady of the night in New York City, though the story remains a bit unclear. In the chorus, Elton sings, these were his lyrics, or Bernie's lyrics, "What you wanting with the white man's world?" It paints an image of her being stuck, unable to escape with a man who wants to take her back to his island home. Elton takes the song in a musical direction that contrasts with a more somber narrative crafted by Bernie Taupin, yet the arrangement totally worked, including the genius Mellotron ARP synthesizer combo in the instrumental break, and that was played by James Newton Howard. Yes, the same guy that did all the soundtracks. Although there has not been an official statement about this, Elton has not played Island Girl in concert since 1990. It was number 1 hit, but he hasn't played it in that many years. Some have speculated that Elton chose not to perform it because it's a difficult song to sing, especially after Elton's throat operation in '87 that considerably altered his vocal range. But the bottom line is that the lyrics for Island Girl have become too racy and controversial for Elton or Bernie. Plus, he thinks it's just a bad song. If you know anything about Elton John, you'll know that he can be very opinionated, so to speak, especially about his own music, his own work. Coming in at number 3 on our Taboo Song Countdown, I got my all-time celebrity crush from Scotland, Sheena Easton with Morning Train 9 to 5, parentheses song. Sheena had a great career and an even better voice. She's a 6-time Grammy Award nominee and a 2-time winner, including the award for Best New Artist in 1982. So Sheena's breakthrough was a number 1 smash on the Billboard Hot 100 back in February of 1981. But in the new millennium, that song would have likely never seen the light of day. Here's why. Sheena was 22 years old when Morning Train raced to number 1, but she'd already been down that sometimes rocky track of marriage, actually. Just before Morning Train went to number 1, she and her first husband divorced. When she was 19, she performed on a BBC reality TV show before American Idol. It was called The Big Time. This followed young aspiring artists trying to break into the music business. That exposure worked, and she was signed to EMI. Her first single, Modern Girl, that one stiffed. But then she was given a Flory Palmer song titled 9 to 5, and things got interesting for the Scottish singer from there. In the States, the label changed the title to Morning Train 9 to 5, to avoid confusion with Dolly Parton's big hit at the time, 9 to 5, and the movie with the same name.
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living.
So Morning Train 9 to 5, it was a catchy little ditty with a snappy Peter Van Hook drum line and some happy-go-lucky sax work by Tony Hall. According to critics, it's a conservative dream and a feminist nightmare. As the song's narrator, Sheena tells the story of a woman whose entire day revolves around waiting for a man to come back home. She's bored, she's restless, consumed by thoughts of him. All day I think of him, dreaming of him constantly. I'm crazy mad for him, and he's crazy mad for me. Her happiness is kind of entirely dependent on his return, at least according to the song. Once he's back, they make love, they maybe grab some dinner, they catch a movie. Not in that exact order, per se. But the man in the mix is more than happy to work all day to earn his pay so he and his woman can play all night. It's a classic song that has old-fashioned gender roles. It made feminists cringe, apparently, when they first heard this song in 1981. And I guess even more so today. I mean, no matter how catchy it is, it's the kind of track that today's cultural gatekeepers have kind of swept under the rug. They haven't given any airtime, even for nostalgia's sake. And people are reading a little too much into it. After Morning Train 9 to 5 topped the charts, EMI Records re-released Modern Girl, sort of working girl counter to Morning Train. That move paid off, giving Sheena her second straight hit on the Hot 100 when the song climbed to number 18. If people won't play this song because of gender roles, that kind of cuts out pretty much every song from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I mean, most of them. Anyway, I think people, again, reading a little too much into it. It's a fun song, and Sheena has such an incredible voice. Oh, man, just wondrous. Next up on the Taboo Song Countdown is the long-haired diva Cher with her second #1 solo hit. A song title I can't even repeat on this platform because it's against their guidelines, so I'll show you a picture of it, album picture. We have this song at number 2. Now, for years, Cher's ex-husband, Sonny Bono, called the shots when it came to their career as a duo, and he even picked the songs for her solo albums in the late 60s and early 70s. Now, Sonny had a solid ear for hits, that's for sure, but he made some pretty odd calls when he passed on a song, The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, for Cher. He thought the song about adultery and murder was just too controversial for her.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
But then, here's where it gets crazy. While he said negatory to The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, Sonny had no problem greenlighting these 3 songs, 2 of which I can't even say on here. Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, a song about a young girl getting pregnant out of wedlock.
I was 16, he was 21.
He also approved this one, a revenge tale about a scorned woman killing a fortune teller who was having an affair with her man. He also approved this one, a song that by the turn of the century had become one of the most taboo tracks in Cher's catalog. Just the title, right? So from here on out, I'll just call it this song. Now, apparently Cher is 1/16th Cherokee on her mom's side. She sang it from the perspective of a mixed-race woman who grew up feeling like an outcast, caught between 2 worlds, part Caucasian, part Native American. She wasn't fully accepted by either.
The white man always called me Indian score.
Struggling to find her place, she ends up seeking validation in relationships that lead nowhere. That's the song. Producer Stuff Garrett took on this song, even though he was on the verge of walking away from working with Sonny and Cher. He and Sonny had been butting heads over the kind of material Cher should be recording. Again, strange choice here.
Give her a feather, she's a Cherokee.
Meanwhile, lyricist Mary Dean had no idea about the behind-the-scenes drama when she brought this song to Garrett, the song she and Al Capps had written specifically for Cher. Now, in a 1973 Rolling Stone magazine interview, Snuff recalled, he said, "From the lyrics alone, I knew it was a smash for Cher and nobody else. I didn't even have Cher as a client at the time. To me, nobody else could do that song. It was Cher's story. So I held on to it, and a few months later, when we got Cher back, it all came together." The recording of this song features a simulated indigenous rhythm brought to life by the legendary Hal Blaine on hoop drums, along with other members of the LA Wrecking Crew. The production also included stereotypical chanting and sound effects, choices that since the song's release in late 73 would be seen as offensive by many indigenous Americans. Following the same path as the aforementioned songs that Sonny Bono signed off on for Cher, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves and these other two songs, the song I'm talking about today rocketed the #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and kept that position for 2 weeks. It was also a #1 single in Canada and New Zealand. Over 1,045,000 of the song were sold in America alone, and the single ranked number 20 in Billboard's year-end survey for 1973. Cher faced intense criticism by Native American activists for cultural appropriation. In 2017, Cher formally stated that she will no longer perform this song or wear the costume she wore while performing it during her live concerts. Actually, the track was even left off Cher's Greatest Hits compilation Forever in 2024, even though it was a massive #1 hit, and I don't think that's ever happened in the history of music.
How I learned to hate the world.
All right, we're to #1, and my pick for #1 here is a song that's really a classic rock standard. It's been covered by many of the biggest names in music, including Sir Elton John. And #1 on the Taboo Songs Countdown Part 3, I've got The Who with Pinball Wizard.
Sure plays a mean pinball.
The Who's Pinball Wizard is a pivotal track from Tommy, the first true rock opera, written by Pete Townsend, of course. The story follows a young guy who's deaf, mute, and blind, but somehow he becomes a pinball master and a massive sensation. The whole thing was later turned into a stage production and even had a runoff on Broadway. Pinball Wizard was actually written as a bit of a stunt to win over a rock critic, actually.
Ever since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball.
Pete Townsend was pumped about Tommy, but the whole rock opera idea wasn't the easiest to sell. When influential UK critic Nick Kahn, when he came in to hear a rough mix of it, he wasn't impressed at all. Thinking on his feet, Townsend remembered that Kahn was obsessed with pinball, so he threw out the idea that Tommy could be a pinball prodigy. And the critic loved it. So Townsend went home and cranked out Pinball Wizard, and that gamble paid off in a big way. He gave Tommy a glowing review, which helped generate buzz and build momentum for the album because he loved pinball, so that worked. The Who released Pinball Wizard as a single from their Tommy album '69. The song peaked at #4 in the UK, and it went to #15 here in the States on the Billboard Hot 100. In 1975, Tommy was transformed into a movie featuring an all-star cast that had, Jack Nicholson, Anne Margaret, Tina Turner, and Roger Daltrey as Tommy. Elton John also made a memorable appearance as the Pinball Wizard, and he performed the song. Actually, Elton's version from the Tommy soundtrack climbed to #7 on the UK charts. It's interesting to note, though, that Elton first passed on being involved with the project, saying he wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. He also convinced Rod Stewart to turn down the offer that was made to him. Interesting. Now, these days, we have to be especially mindful when talking about disabilities or health conditions, that's for sure. I mean, when you review the lyrics that Pete Townsend wrote for Pinball Wizard, you hear where the song has attracted controversy. That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. In Elton's version, he actually changed the lyrics and added some smack to that. He said, "I've always been the champ. I know every trick, no freak's gonna beat my hand." Also, Pete Townsend has never been shy about his dislike for the song or outright hate. Almost from the start, he dismissed it as awful. In the liner notes, he even admitted, "I'm embarrassed. This song sounds like a music hall tune." He later disclosed that he scribbled it together quickly, keeping all the verses the same length with no real middle section. He was convinced that it would be a total flop, only did it to impress that critic, but he just went ahead with it anyway. Pete totally misjudged Pinball Wizard, though. It's widely considered one of the greatest songs of the rock era. And that said, the song's subject matter has given Pete an excuse to leave it off the set list for his solo or Who gigs. National airplay has actually dropped a lot in the last 5 years on this song. Personally, I think it's an incredible track. The sheer sonic power of the arrangement alone makes it so unforgettable. But as society keeps analyzing and really overanalyzing lyrics through a modern lens of political and social correctness, it'd be interesting to see where Pinball Wizard ultimately lands in music history. You know, it's funny, my son, my 13-year-old that has autism, actually, he loves to listen to his music and kind of bounce off the walls in his room. And I love to listen to him sing this song. It's just really cute. That wraps up our third countdown of taboo songs of the rock era. Tracks that once dominated the charts, but have since become too controversial for the mainstream, or at least by the self-acclaimed deans of decency, right? Music has always reflected the times, and as perspectives shift, so does the way we view these once beloved hits. Some are quietly fading from playlists, while others spark debate every time they resurface. I tend to think that people are way too uptight these days. You got to be careful with every syllable that comes out of your mouth. I mean, for fear of offending somebody. But what do you think? Should these songs be left in the past, or do they still have a place in music history? Let us know in the comments, and let's have a great discussion about this. To me, history is history, and history will teach us nothing if we get rid of the things that made us change. Anyway, I could go on and on, but let's have a great discussion below. In our last few, we covered Hit Me With Your Best Shot, and we covered All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, and the Brown Sugar. Anyway, let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.